And then, so a recap of what I've learned. Disasters are expensive in time and money for everyone. It's not just the IT team that has problems when disaster strikes. Be agile and move quickly. Restore to a point in time where you trust that data so that the normal operations can keep on going, orders can take place, the normal day-to-day operations. Then isolate your faulty data, work in it in some sandbox, extract it, and recreate that data. Never import that data again. It's better just to recreate it. Then also, if 20% sacrifice can fix 100% of your time, in a lot of aspects, I'm a perfectionist, and I've, to some extent, learned to let go of that. In other aspects, I am a perfectionist, absolutely. But if it can solve 100% of your problems just by buying a piece of software instead of lengthy interviews, finding the right guy, then do it. You know, it's not a life insurance policy that you're paying off. You know, then log everything. Seriously, log everything. Devs and PMs, they're your most demanding customers, but they also are your best assets. So keep them very happy. Use Puppet, and if you can, it is expensive in some ways, but if you can, use CloudFormation, because that enables you to put your entire infrastructure, your configuration, and your application in code. And when you are able to do that, every problem is just one commit away from a fix. And then back up everything, back up all the things. And I thought I'd end up with some logos of the clients that cluster control services. Some pretty big ones. Orange, you'll see Africa Internet Accelerator in there, Cisco, and all of these guys. And then lastly, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining me. You're welcome to ask some questions if you have any.
Yeah, thanks very much, Riaan. Thanks for walking us through this. And if there are any questions, everyone in the audience, feel free to ask them in the questions section of your control panel. And maybe once you do, while you do that, I'm just going to ask all of you one last question, just a poll. The last one for today. But just to ask all of you what database you are using, whether it's a managed database service or whether you have your own managed solution in single instance or as replicated high availability, just to give us an idea of how you are currently set up. And as Riaan said, feel free to ask questions in the questions box as well in the meantime, and we can look at them in a second. So thank you for answering this poll. I'll just give it a couple more seconds. Great, thank you. And just share the results. So it looks like everyone in the audience has an own managed solution for sure, replicated HA. And then it's a split between other setups or managed solution single instance or managed service. RDS, I don't know if you have any comments on that, Riaan?
I don't actually have any comments on that. It is whatever works for you. These things are actually all the same. I mean, the same problems that we had at AIA with write-heavy database operations can happen on RDS as well. So I suppose it's how you treat it, how you treat your data layer.
That makes sense. And so maybe there's a question here, Riaan, if you wouldn't mind answering that, and that's to do with how to make two automation solutions work together, such as we've talked about earlier. So, for instance, Puppet and Cluster Control. If you have any recommendations there.
What I'll try to do is similar like any other package like Solar or Nginx or your whole OS. Puppet doesn't manage every single aspect of it. So I try to then manage around it. And I would also take the configurations that Cluster Control writes and put them into Puppet, but just add a no-op to that. So Puppet won't actually replace everything. Every time it runs, it will just give you a diff of what has changed. And then you can always update your templates that way. That way you can just keep track of what has been happening in the web GUI and things like that. It just makes you aware of the changes that are going on.
Excellent. Thanks, Riaan. There's a question here from Christopher, which I can just quickly answer, and that is that yes, we will make the slides and the recording of the session actually available just after, well, probably tomorrow or the day after. We'll send you an email with the links to it, so you'll have all of that. And then there is a question here for you, Riaan, from Lakshma. I don't know if you can see that. What is the best suggested HA solution for MySQL in a multi-master setup? If you have any recommendations there.
What went really well for me was Galera and the cluster control solution, because I did use all of these technologies before, HA proxy and MySQL Galera already before, but what was lacking was a web interface where I could see actually what was happening on this database layer. So that worked really well for me. I've also got good mileage out of RDS. So I suppose it's budget and your time. That will tell you what you need to go for.
That makes sense. Thanks, Riaan. And there's a question here from Christopher. If you could compare Puppet to Salt in terms of features and I suppose in your real life experience, because apparently in Christopher's organization, they've just switched over from Puppet to Salt, but the person who did that then left. So I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
The thing about Salt Stack is, like my colleague said, it's like painting your house from the outside in. So you kind of set yourself up to only rely on that technology going forward. And then also another thing is their API calls to Amazon. Some of the people that I've talked to, their calls take really, really long because it executes it in kind of a queue format. I'm not sure if that is correct or not, but when I told them that I can launch 20 new instances in 4 minutes using CloudFormation, they didn't believe me. They said they cannot do that with SaltStack. So that is some of the things I have. I mean, obviously it makes it easier for you, and they will also, as the service mature, they'll get better at using it. So my recommendation is always use any form of automation. Doesn't matter what it is, but if you are more, if you're comfortable with Puppet, and if the SaltStack's already set up, then use it, write it. You don't have to rebuild everything.
Good stuff. And there's a follow-up question here from Lakshma on his previous question. They have a multi-master setup with semi-sync replication. So the question is whether you have any suggestions for better manageability, or how to better manage this sort of setup.
Multi-master semi-sync. Well, what I always used to do is I would split some databases off. So I don't know if this is the question, what it refers to, but I suppose it's the incremental extra backup, and I would use that to sync to a read replica that my developers use, that I could only dump from, or for BI, I would set up a database server only for them that has no impact on the live sites whatsoever. I'm not sure if I answered your question right, but that's what I think about it.
That sounds good. Thanks, Riaan. And maybe there's just another question here that maybe we can also cover is how you would compare RDS master-slave type of setup with something like Galera that you would manage on your own.
The thing is, RDS doesn't have that setup at the moment. I believe it's coming out with, what's it called? Aurora. With AWS Aurora. But currently, RDS don't have master to master. They don't have master to master as the way I use it. They don't have that. Possibly you can do it on yourself, but if you need master to master replication, then perhaps get a fairly large instance, install MySQL on it, get a little smaller VM that can run your management node of cluster control, and set it up that way. I've also
I've seen a product for Galleria on RDS, and there's also like RDS is a multi-AZ. So if you have an RDS or multi-AZ, it's technically master anyway, because if you lose that AZ, then it comes over to another one.
Yes. So there are some products. I don't think it's in the default offering from Amazon. I'd certainly take a look at that. Yeah. All I can tell you one thing though is RDS is very expensive. One of our RDSs costs more than all of the EC2 instances.
Sounds good. And just as a side note, just to say that cluster control can actually manage MySQL replication with a semi-sync replication, so that'd be something to look at as well.
Excellent.
And I'm just looking here. I'm not seeing any further questions just for now. So it sounds like we've covered everything off, Riaan. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. And
thank you for your time, and thank you for all the people who joined, the attendees, and I wish you a wonderful week, Happy DevOps.
Absolutely, yeah, thanks very much. And like I said earlier, we'll make the recording and the slides of the session available. Maybe you want to show us your colleague. He's kind of popping into the view. Hello.
This is Jürgen's Australian counterpart.
Hi. Hey, thanks very much for participating. And thanks to all of you who attended today. And we'll drop you an email with the link to the replay and the slides that Riaan used today. So thank you, Riaan. Have a good rest of the day and talk to you all soon.
Great. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.